We all do it. You make a choice, and before you even have a chance to step forward, you're already explaining yourself. The reason behind every decision, every action, every word. It's almost like you owe it to others to justify who you are and why you do what you do. But here's the thing, this constant need to explain yourself can be draining. What if, instead of explaining, you could tap into something more powerful? Less explanation could actually lead to more clarity, more control, and more strength in your life. In today's video, we are going to uncover why explaining yourself too much might be holding you back. You'll learn how this habit stems from a place of insecurity and how it wastes valuable energy that could be better used elsewhere. You'll discover how the power of silence can often speak louder than words and why actions will always speak louder than your explanations. The most surprising part, the truth is, the less you explain yourself, the more respect and confidence you will gain. Throughout this video, we'll break down the psychological reasons behind over-explaining, and we will show you how releasing the need to justify yourself opens doors to greater self-belief and an enhanced ability to live authentically. You'll find out how to stop seeking approval and start trusting your instincts. If you've ever felt exhausted by trying to explain every detail of your life to others, this video is exactly what you need. Stick with us until the end, and we promise you'll walk away with a new perspective on the power of silence and self-trust. Welcome to our channel. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss the valuable insights we share. Let's get started. Before we talk about how to stop over-explaining, it is important to understand why people tend to over-explain in the first place. At the core of this behavior, there is often a deep fear of judgment. People worry that if they don't provide enough details or justifications, others will form negative opinions about them. This fear of being misunderstood or misjudged is powerful. It creates a strong urge to offer explanation after explanation, even when it is unnecessary. The fear of judgment can manifest in many ways. It can come from a past experience where someone felt criticized or invalidated. Perhaps it was a time when a decision was misunderstood and the individual was made to feel wrong or inadequate. This experience leaves a lasting impact, and the person might begin to feel as though they need to explain every action in order to avoid further criticism. The more you explain, the more you believe you can control the way others see you. But in reality, it often does the opposite. Over-explaining can lead to confusion and create an impression of insecurity. Before we delve deeper, it is essential to recognize another reason why people over-explain: the desire for approval. Approval is a powerful motivator. People have a natural instinct to seek approval from others, especially from those they care about or respect. When we feel the need to be accepted, we become more likely to justify our actions in an attempt to prove that we are worthy of that approval. This can often be seen in situations where someone feels they need to explain why they made a certain choice or why they believe something is true. This need for approval is rooted in insecurity. It arises from the belief that our self-worth is dependent on how others perceive us. When we rely too heavily on external validation, we can become trapped in a cycle of explaining and justifying. The more we explain, the more we try to convince others of our worth. But the truth is, approval from others is fleeting. It cannot provide the lasting confidence and inner peace that comes from within. The more a person seeks approval, the more they may feel disconnected from their true self. Before we go further, it is worth noting that over-explaining is not always about seeking approval from others. Sometimes it is driven by the deep-seated desire to be understood. People want to feel heard, to feel that their choices and their beliefs make sense to those around them. This desire to be understood can stem from a place of wanting to feel validated in our own existence. When we share our thoughts and actions, we hope others will recognize and appreciate the reasoning behind them. This is particularly true in relationships where the need for understanding can be profound. If someone feels that their partner, friend, or family member does not truly understand them, they may over-explain just to bridge that gap. But here lies the paradox: the more a person over-explains, the less they are truly heard. The more words we use to justify ourselves, the less effective those words become. Over explaining can lead to overwhelm, where the message gets lost in a sea of unnecessary details. People begin to tune out not because they don't care, but because the constant explanations create a sense of confusion or frustration. They may no longer feel the need to listen because they sense that the person is not trusting their own judgment, or they are simply trying too hard to prove something. Before we continue, it is important to understand that over-explaining is often a defense mechanism. It is a way to protect oneself from vulnerability. By explaining every detail, people believe they can shield themselves from criticism, rejection, or even misunderstandings. In this way, over-explaining becomes a form of self-protection. However, in doing so, they may be blocking genuine connection. Constantly justifying yourself keeps others at a distance, preventing true intimacy from forming. People can sense when someone is not being authentic, and when explanations are used as shields, it often creates an invisible wall between individuals. Before we conclude this section, let us take a moment to understand the deeper emotional impact of over-explaining. The act of justifying oneself repeatedly can lead to feelings of exhaustion, frustration, and even self-doubt. It is a sign that the person is not fully trusting themselves or their decisions. They feel they must provide evidence, a reason, or an excuse for everything they do. This mental and emotional drain can take a toll over time, leading to a sense of emptiness or a lack of fulfillment. Rather than finding peace in their own choices, individuals who over-explain often feel that they are stuck in an endless loop of needing to prove themselves to others. Over-explaining may begin as an attempt to protect or justify oneself, but it often ends up doing more harm than good. It is a cycle that can hold you back from living authentically and confidently. Recognizing the root causes of over-explaining is the first step toward breaking free from this habit. By understanding the fears, insecurities, and desires that drive this behavior, it becomes easier to stop justifying every action and start living with greater self-assurance. Before we talk about the importance of conserving energy, it is important to consider just how much energy is wasted when we constantly feel the need to explain ourselves. Every time you offer an explanation, you are using valuable mental and emotional resources. These resources could be better used elsewhere, yet they are drained away as you try to justify your actions and words. What you may not realize is that this constant need to explain takes a toll on your mental clarity and your emotional well-being. Explaining yourself requires focus. It forces you to think about what you are saying, how you are saying it, and how it will be received. This mental energy could be spent on other things that bring you closer to your goals or help you grow in meaningful ways. But instead, it is spent trying to make others understand something that may not even require an explanation. The more you explain, the more your mind becomes cluttered. You begin to overthink and overanalyze, which only drains you further. Before we go deeper, it is also essential to recognize that explaining yourself can be emotionally exhausting. The energy spent in trying to convince others of your decisions can create a sense of emotional depletion. You may start to feel frustrated, as if your worth is tied to the validation of others. This emotional drain can manifest as stress, irritability, or even feelings of doubt about your own choices. The constant need to justify yourself creates a loop of emotional expenditure that leaves you feeling empty and worn out. Before we continue, consider this: every moment spent over-explaining pulls your attention away from what really matters. Rather than focusing on your own growth, your dreams, or the things that bring you peace, your attention is diverted toward defending yourself. You give away your power by trying to make others see things from your perspective. The more you give away this energy, the less you have for yourself. Over time, this imbalance becomes noticeable. It leads to burnout, frustration, and a sense of being drained without knowing exactly why. Before we dive into how to shift this pattern, it is important to recognize the significance of conserving mental and emotional energy. Energy is not just about how much we have, it is about how effectively we use it. The more energy you waste on explaining yourself, the less you have available for personal growth, creativity, or the pursuit of your true desires. Your thoughts and emotions are powerful forces that shape your reality. If you are constantly using that power to justify your actions, it cannot be used to create the life you truly want. Before we proceed, think about how you feel when you stop over explaining. There is a noticeable shift in your energy. When you trust yourself and your decisions, your energy becomes more aligned with your goals. You stop giving away pieces of yourself and start focusing on your own development. By conserving mental and emotional energy, you free up space for higher levels of thinking, deeper focus, and more intentional living. Instead of getting caught up in the need to explain, you can turn your attention to what truly matters: your actions, your growth, and your vision for the future. Before we go further, consider how much of your energy is tied to the fear of judgment. This fear drives the need to explain. The more you try to justify yourself to others, the more energy you are giving away to their opinions. You lose focus on what is important to you and start to give importance to external validation. The truth is, seeking approval and worrying about how others perceive you only drains your energy. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of self doubt and exhaustion. Before we wrap up this section, it is vital to realize that when you stop over explaining, you begin to regain control over your energy. You no longer feel the need to explain every little detail to others. You trust that your actions will speak for themselves and that your decisions are valid simply because they are yours. This shift in mindset allows you to conserve your energy, which leads to greater clarity and more focused action. Instead of feeling drained, you will feel empowered, and your mental and emotional resources can be used in a way that supports your personal growth and well being. The energy you waste by constantly explaining yourself can be used in far more productive ways. By conserving that energy, you create space for growth, focus, and the pursuit of your true purpose. When you stop explaining, you start living with intention and confidence. Before we talk about the power of silence, it is important to understand that silence is not an absence of communication. It is a different form of communication altogether. Many people underestimate the power that silence holds in our interactions with others. Silence can speak volumes without saying a word. It has the ability to convey strength, understanding, and confidence. In a world filled with constant noise and chatter, choosing silence can be an incredibly powerful act. Before we explore this further, think about how often we feel compelled to fill every moment with words, whether it is explaining ourselves, defending our decisions, or simply filling uncomfortable silences. There is a tendency to believe that more words are always better. However, there is immense power in moments of stillness. When you choose to remain silent, you create space for deeper reflection, for understanding, and for more meaningful connections. Silence allows you to be present without the need to justify your actions or thoughts. Before we go deeper, consider the role of confidence in communication. Quiet confidence, the kind that comes from within, is far more powerful than words alone. A person who is confident does not need to explain or justify their every move. They carry themselves with a presence that speaks for itself. Quiet confidence comes from trust in one's decisions and actions without needing the approval or validation of others. It is the strength that arises from knowing you do not need to prove anything to anyone. When you communicate from this place of confidence, your words become less important. Your presence, your actions, and the energy you emit speak louder than any explanation could. Before we continue, let us look at how silence can shift the dynamics of a conversation. In a discussion or debate, there is often a tendency to speak over others, to prove points, or to win the argument. But when you choose to remain silent, you create a space for others to express themselves fully. Silence shifts the focus away from words and towards the energy in the room. It allows people to process their thoughts, to reflect, and to respond more thoughtfully. The power of silence in this context is that it encourages genuine listening and understanding. It places the focus on the quality of the interaction, not the quantity of words spoken. Before we go further, it is essential to recognize that silence can also be an act of self discipline. When we stop explaining ourselves, we practice the ability to control our impulses and choose when and how we speak. This discipline is an important part of developing emotional intelligence. By learning to embrace silence, we reduce the mental clutter that often comes from overthinking and over-explaining. We begin to filter out the unnecessary words and focus on what truly matters. The more we embrace this discipline, the more powerful our words and actions become when we do choose to speak. Before we continue with this idea, consider how silence can enhance the impact of our presence. Have you ever been in a room with someone who radiates quiet strength? Their presence alone commands attention. They don't need to say much, yet everyone around them can feel the energy they bring. This is the kind of power that silence can provide. When you are confident and secure in yourself, you no longer feel the need to fill every space with words. Your silence speaks to your inner strength, your composure, and your ability to trust in your own actions. Before we proceed, let us take a moment to think about the impact of quiet confidence in situations of tension or conflict. When faced with a challenging conversation or a confrontation, many people rush to explain themselves or to defend their position. However, those who remain calm and composed, who choose silence over unnecessary words, often command the most respect. They do not react out of fear or insecurity. Instead, they remain grounded, allowing the situation to unfold without adding fuel to the fire. This kind of stillness is often more powerful than a verbal response. It conveys that you are in control, that you are not rattled by external circumstances, and that you have the confidence to allow things to play out naturally. Before we move forward, we must recognize that silence also fosters deeper self awareness. In the stillness, you have the opportunity to listen to your own thoughts, to connect with your inner truth, and to reflect on your emotions. When you are constantly speaking, explaining, or defending yourself, it is difficult to hear your own voice above the noise. Silence gives you the space to tune into your inner guidance and to trust your instincts. It is in these moments of quiet reflection that true clarity and insight emerge. Before we finish this section, it is important to realize that the power of silence does not mean avoiding communication altogether. Rather, it is about choosing when to speak and when to remain silent. It is about understanding that sometimes less is more. By embracing silence, you allow your energy to speak for itself. Your presence becomes a powerful tool for communication, one that does not rely on constant justification or explanation. Instead, you communicate through your actions, your confidence, and your stillness, making every word you do speak more impactful and meaningful. Before we talk about the relationship between the mind and actions, it is important to understand that our thoughts are the driving force behind our behavior. What we think shapes the way we act, and in turn, our actions create the reality we experience. Every decision, every reaction, and every movement starts in the mind. Our internal dialogue and beliefs influence how we interact with the world, how we make choices, and how we perceive our circumstances. The mind holds immense power in shaping our lives, and by becoming aware of this power, we can start to take control of our reality. Before we explore this further, think about how your thoughts influence your actions. If you constantly tell yourself that you need to explain or justify your choices, then you will act in ways that align with that belief. You may find yourself offering unnecessary explanations, constantly seeking approval, or doubting your own decisions. Your thoughts of self doubt and insecurity lead to behaviors that reinforce those very thoughts. On the other hand, when you begin to shift your mindset, your actions begin to change as well. By becoming more confident in your decisions and trusting your intuition, you stop over explaining and start acting with greater clarity and purpose. Your mindset shapes the way you approach situations, and as a result, your actions become more aligned with your true self. Before we continue, let's take a deeper look at how less explanation can help reshape your mindset. When you stop explaining yourself, you send a message to your subconscious mind that you trust your decisions. Each time you refrain from justifying your actions, you reinforce the belief that your choices are valid without needing external validation. This shift in mindset leads to greater self belief. You begin to recognize that your actions are worthy of respect and that you do not need to convince others of your worth. As you stop over explaining, you begin to trust in the process of life, knowing that your path is unique to you and does not require constant justification to others. Before we proceed, it is important to realize that less explanation can also help remove the mental clutter that often prevents us from making clear decisions. When we are caught up in explaining ourselves, our thoughts become disorganized. We become distracted by the need to defend or justify, which clouds our ability to think clearly. The more we try to explain, the more we complicate the situation. But when we choose to be silent and confident in our choices, our thoughts become more focused and aligned. We clear the mental space needed for creativity, problem solving, and decision making. In this way, less explanation allows us to conserve mental energy, which can be redirected towards more meaningful and productive actions. Before we go further, consider the impact of a strong, clear mindset on your behavior. When you stop over explaining, you begin to act with more conviction. Your decisions no longer come from a place of fear or insecurity, but from a place of trust and certainty. This shift in mindset leads to stronger actions as you become more confident in the choices you make. You are no longer weighed down by the need to justify your actions to others, and this lightness frees you to act with greater power and focus. As you trust yourself more, you take bolder steps in your life, knowing that your path is yours to create. Before we continue, let us also consider how this shift in mindset impacts your ability to navigate challenges. When you constantly feel the need to explain yourself, it is often because you are afraid of judgment or rejection. This fear can create a mindset of weakness where you feel as though you need to defend or prove yourself. However, when you stop over explaining, you begin to shift from a mindset of fear to one of strength. You trust that your actions speak for themselves and that you do not need to seek validation from others. This confidence allows you to face challenges with a clearer perspective and a greater sense of empowerment. You no longer waste energy on explaining, but instead focus on the solutions and actions needed to overcome obstacles. Before we go deeper, it is also essential to understand that our thoughts not only shape our actions, but also shape how we perceive the world around us. When you constantly seek approval or feel the need to explain yourself, you are focusing your energy outward, trying to control how others see you. This focus on external validation keeps you trapped in a cycle of self doubt and insecurity. But when you stop over explaining, you shift your focus inward. You begin to trust your own intuition and inner wisdom. This shift in perception allows you to see the world from a place of clarity and confidence, where you are no longer dependent on the opinions of others to define your self worth. Before we finish this section, consider how the simple act of reducing your explanations can transform your mindset over time. The more you practice quieting the need to explain yourself, the more you begin to internalize the belief that you are enough as you are. This process of self acceptance strengthens your mental state and builds your confidence. Your mindset becomes more aligned with your true values, and your actions begin to reflect this inner certainty. As your thoughts become more empowered, your reality shifts, and you start to see the results of your actions more clearly. Less explanation leads to greater self belief, which in turn creates a reality that is in harmony with your authentic self. Before we talk about the power of actions, it is important to recognize that actions are the truest reflection of who we are. While words can be persuasive and well intentioned, they do not carry the same weight as what we do. Our actions reveal our true intentions, values, and character. No matter how much we explain ourselves or try to justify our decisions, it is what we do that ultimately defines us. Actions show the world the substance behind our words, and they hold the power to shape the way others perceive us. Before we delve deeper, think about how often people feel the need to explain themselves. We justify our actions with words, hoping to be understood or accepted. But the truth is, words alone can be empty. They can be misunderstood or misinterpreted, and they can easily fade away. Actions, on the other hand, leave a lasting impression. When you take deliberate actions that align with your values, others can see the truth of who you are without needing a lengthy explanation. The more you trust in your actions, the less you will feel the need to fill the space with words. Before we continue, it is important to recognize that actions carry an inherent strength that words simply cannot match. Words can sometimes be used to manipulate, to explain away mistakes, or to cover up intentions. But actions do not lie. They cannot be misinterpreted in the same way. When you demonstrate your value through your actions, you communicate far more effectively than any explanation could. People begin to trust you based on what they see you do rather than what they hear you say. Actions are tangible, they have a direct impact on the world around you and serve as proof of your character and capabilities. Before we go further, think about the ways in which we demonstrate our value in life. Too often, we rely on words to convince others of our worth. We talk about our achievements, our plans, and our goals, but these words are meaningless without action to back them up. It is easy to talk about being capable, compassionate, or ambitious, but it is the actions you take that truly demonstrate these qualities. People will not remember your words, but they will remember how you made them feel and what you accomplished. Your actions, when aligned with your values, are the proof of your worth, not just your words. Before we proceed, let's consider the role of trust in the equation. Trust is built through consistency. When you take action that is in alignment with your values, you build trust with others. When you say something and follow through with it, your integrity becomes evident. The more you trust your actions, the more others will trust you. This trust is the foundation of strong relationships and opportunities. When you rely on words alone, you risk undermining your credibility. Actions speak in a way that words simply cannot, and they build a reputation that is earned through consistent behavior. Before we continue, it is essential to realize that demonstrating value through action is not about seeking approval from others. It is about living authentically and showing the world who you are through what you do, not what you say. Too often, people rely on words to gain approval or to fit into societal expectations. They talk about their worth, but their actions fail to match their words. The key to true self belief and confidence is trusting in your actions to demonstrate your value. When you stop over explaining and start taking decisive actions, you send a message to yourself and the world that you are confident in who you are. Before we go deeper, consider how taking action can help you build a stronger sense of self. The more you act in alignment with your values, the more you reinforce your sense of purpose and direction. When you trust your actions, you stop relying on external validation. You no longer feel the need to explain or justify your choices to others because you know that your actions speak for themselves. Each action taken in alignment with your truth adds to your self confidence, helping you move forward with a sense of clarity and determination. Before we proceed, think about how this shift from words to actions can transform your relationships and opportunities. When you demonstrate your value through your actions, you create deeper connections with others. People are drawn to those who act with integrity and consistency. Your actions become a reflection of your character, and this attracts people who resonate with your values. The more you trust in your actions, the more you will find that you no longer need to explain or justify yourself. Your presence will be enough to communicate your worth, and the relationships you build will be based on mutual respect and understanding. Before we move forward, it is important to understand that the shift from words to actions also impacts your personal growth. The more you trust in your actions, the more you will challenge yourself to step outside of your comfort zone. Words are easy to say, but actions require effort, consistency, and commitment. When you take action, you are demonstrating not only your capabilities, but also your willingness to grow and evolve. Each step you take is a testament to your ability to create the life you desire without relying on justifications or explanations. This empowers you to pursue your goals with greater clarity and confidence. Before we conclude, it is essential to recognize that words and actions are not mutually exclusive. Words have their place, but they are most powerful when they are aligned with your actions. When you live authentically and trust in your actions to communicate your value, your words become more meaningful and impactful. By trusting in your actions and demonstrating your worth through consistent behavior, you build a foundation of trust, self-belief, and confidence that will guide you toward success. In the end, it is not what you say that defines you, but what you do. Actions speak louder than words, and they have the power to create the life and reality you truly desire. In conclusion, the key takeaway from today's discussion is simple: stop explaining and start living with intention. When you trust yourself and your actions, you allow your true power to emerge. Words can be powerful, but actions speak louder. By embracing the strength in silence and reducing the need for constant explanation, you free yourself to live more authentically and with greater confidence. Trust in your decisions, trust in your actions, and embrace the power of less. If you found value in this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and remember, your actions are the strongest form of communication.